So, probably even from the very first scene, I kept wondering where the hell Batman was. Hi guys, my name is Maria Park, and this is Approach the Nerd. And in this episode, we are reviewing the Birds of Prey movie. I finally got to see it. A little late, I know. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, I enjoyed myself. It was a fun movie. I do have questions though, as usual. So let's jump to it. As somebody who loves the comics, I there were a lot of things that happened in the movie that I'm okay with, but it was just very strange to see. One of those things was the character development on some of the villains. For instance, Roman Sionis or Black Mask. If you've read any of the DC comics from Rebirth, post-crisis, you know that Black Mask is a very complicated and crazy character. But the reason that he is the way he is because of his parents. His parents they were like rich and the socialites that were friends with, Bruce Wayne's family, and they basically were very stuck up and they were all about image first. So even if when he was a child, he would have accidents. Like I think at some point he was like dropped as a kid at when he was a baby or a young child, and they covered it up. And, he had all these things happen in his childhood that his parents were like, no, nobody else could know about. And this continued throughout his life. And then he meets this model named Cersei. I believe her name was Cersei. It's been a minute. That he falls deeply, deeply, deeply in love with. And at the time he's working for his family's cosmetic company. And, his parents say, no, she's not good enough for you. We forbid you to marry her. How would that look for our family? And so he burns his house down with his parents in it. And that just kind of starts the kind of trend of what happens to him. And nobody knows he killed his parents. He actually goes on to take over his parents' company and kind of drives it into the ground because he's not good with business. And Bruce Wayne, his childhood friend, offers to bail him out if he could basically take over the company, and he loses his stuff and he has this epiphany, one day, and I think it's his family's tomb where he goes to I don't know what he planned on doing to his dad's grave. It was just really interesting, but he has an epiphany there, and that in his mind it became all clear that he needed to become this character of the Black Mask. And later on in the comics, he goes on to create the False Face Group, which is a bunch of criminals that work for him. And yes, Victor Zsasz at one point becomes a villain that works for him. But his story is also based on his parents being crazy and him basically being so depressed that they died. It was either a plane crash or by boat or train or some kind of vehicular, death that he lost both of his parents. He became very, very depressed. He was going to kill himself, and then he was attacked by this guy, a homeless guy or a drug addict or something. And while he's wrestling with the knife that the person's attacking him with, and he stabs him, he has the epiphany that should be his life's work. He should just set people free. Meaning he's psychotic. He becomes a serial killer. He actually stages bodies, slits women's throats. He's a very horrible person. The reason I'm talking about all this is backstory stuff from the comics is because you have these two characters that are in Birds of Prey that have no backstory. We don't know why they're nuts. It's like, why are you like this? And seeing Victor Zsasz kind of being like the little whipping boy for Roman is not what happened in the comics. As a matter of fact, Roman gave him a suitcase full of money and said, hey, go do your thing. Victor actually dies at the hands of Damian Wayne, which is it's no here to here. I know for movie purposes, it's a different universe. So, you can let things like that go. I'm not one of those rabid comic fans, but it's just these little things, when you see these two characters, these two crazy villains that are put together in such a way, it's just very strange. But I guess because you have to have villains in Birds of Prey, why not have two of the craziest Batman ones, which are Roman and Victor. But what's just really strange is that through all the events that happened in this movie with Harley blowing up the chem lab and, all of the basic destruction happening in Gotham and people on the loose doing what they do. We know it's Gotham. Gotham is a very crime, riddled city. But where in the heck was Batman? Where was Batman? I understand his movie hasn't come out. The revamped version hasn't come out. But where is he? So yeah, it was that was interesting. So let's talk more about the movie itself. So Mary Weinstein as Huntress was amazing. I got some Ramona vibes from her from Scott Pilgrim, but she was one of my favorite characters. She's so monotone, but yeah, shows emotion through rage, and I love that. I love that. That to me was a very good portrayal of Helena. I actually liked Black Canary. Like, I thought Dinah was really well cast. And I'm assuming this is Dinah Laurel, because Renee mentions her mother in a scene, saying that her mother used to work with, GPD, and that they were, she was very instrumental in helping them. So, or GCPD, sorry. And so I think that the mother must have been Dinah Drake, and so this would be Dinah Laurel Lance. That's what I'm thinking. I don't know, because we just call her Canary, So, but yeah, I really liked it. I like that we've got to see the Canary scream. I guess my problem with this is that we don't get to see like a lot of teamwork. And I get it. To me, this is more like a prequel, which this would have been really good to have a Harley Quinn movie that led into the Birds of Prey. I guess like Harley Quinn and the birth of the Birds of Canary or something like that. That would have been very cool, because it seems like most of the action for the Birds of Prey happened in the last 10 minutes of the movie, and that was it. So like everybody was doing their own thing, and then they all got together in the last 10 minutes of the film. And those last 10 minutes were awesome. The fight scenes were awesome. They were kick-ass. Like the choreography in this throughout the whole thing, even Harley's solo fights were amazing. But it just seems like it wasn't a Birds of Prey movie. It was a Harley movie, and then there were Birds of Prey introduced for like a millisecond. So yeah, that was a little weird. And there's a big problem with backstories again for them. Like, we don't have all of Black Canary's backstory. Like, what happened to the mother? We know she died, but what happened? Like, was she an orphan in the system? Which I'm assuming that's what's happening. They made it look that way with her talk with Cassie, but like it's just really strange. Like, we don't know her full story. Like, how did the events of her life lead her to Roman, where she makes a comment, well, he took me off the streets and saved me and gave me a job. This misogynistic, insane guy. But what led to that? I would love to know more about her backstory. Huntress's backstory deserves its own movie. Just saying, it's brutal in the comic books. It's actually more brutal in the comic books, but because a lot more happens to her in the comics. But yeah, I would love to see Huntress's, backstory as a full-fledged movie. We saw how she trained throughout the years with the Assassin Brothers and, all of this, but what happened? And did she kill the goon that saved her and brought her to his father and brother? Because he was there when her parents died. Did he have to die too for being there? I mean, I would love to know the semantics of that, I guess. Renee Montoya, we got no backstory. The only thing we got to see was her ex-girlfriend and the fact that her captain stole all the credit for her work. Renee Montoya is a badass character in the comics. She later on becomes the Question. I think in the latest Lois Lane run, she is the Question. The new Question. But she's just a really badass character. She's been hooked, kind of linked to some of the coolest characters in the DC universe. She even dated Batwoman. I mean, it's like, this woman is badass. But we didn't get to see hardly any of that. All we saw was an alcoholic version of her that's kind of trying to prove herself to her precinct, which is so weird. And like, yeah, she had a little bit of the comics, but not to the extent where she's like trying to break and enter to get evidence. I mean, it's just so weird. She's not the Renee that we know. And again, I'm trying to be objective, because this is the DCEU universe, which means this version of Renee is different. I did not hate Renee's character, or I didn't hate what they did with her. They just didn't do enough. They should have had more of Renee in that story, because if it's Birds of Prey, Renee Montoya should have been in that a little bit more. Just saying. But yeah, I mean, I just have questions. I did like some of the flashbacks. I do think some of the flashbacks went on a long time, though. I mean, 10 to 15 minutes. Because when Harley would say, let's start from the beginning, and the beginning is like literally recounting every moment of those 15 minutes. So there's multiple flashbacks. I did appreciate it at the beginning when we got the first like Harley introduction to her life. But I will say, I love Margot as, Margot Robbie as Harlequin is really cool. I love her as Harley. She's a really good Harley. But they do, or at least in this movie, they did kind of mellow her out a little bit, because Harley is crazy. That is the one thing about Harley. She's crazy. She could be a rational thinker, but she chooses not to be. So she spent more time analyzing people with her psychiatry degree than she did, her psychology degree, than she did actually being Harley. So there was that. I didn't get the complete feel of, okay, this is crazy, but Harley, who is unpredictable and can do anything and snap or whatever. I did like her walking into the police station and just kind of open firing with the glitter bombs on all the cops. That's something Harley would do. But most of the time, it was basically her mourning Mr. J and, trying to find herself without a master and things like that. And it was really, I understand it's the emancipation, but it's just really strange in that way. So I just wish they did a little bit more, I guess. The Easter eggs were cool. One of the coolest ones I noticed was having Captain Boomerang on the wall when she's like, oh, I know this guy, which is a very big Flash villain, which I wonder if they're actually setting that up for a Flashpoint movie, because they did say the Flashpoint movie was going to be made with Ezra Miller, and that it's going to be unlike anything we've seen with Flashpoint. So maybe that's kind of like a key into what's happening in that universe. I don't know. But that was kind of cool. A nice little homage to Captain Boomerang and the Flash. But yeah, fight scenes again, very, very good. The scene transitions were very fast, but the dialogue was very slow. So sometimes it was like they were fighting to keep up with each other. I wish the villains had more backstory so we got more of their motivation other than them just being sadistic, misogynistic, crazy people. And I wish we had more backstory and more screen time for the actual Birds of Prey, because that's what the movie should have been about. But outside of that, yeah, I enjoyed the movie. It had very fun moments. A little side note, having Harley become Cassie Kane's role model or mentor is very interesting, because, comics, Cassie goes on to become Batwoman and then later on Orphan. So that parallel is very interesting. We didn't have any mention of her mother, Lady Shiva, or her father, who is a very notable villain in Batman as well. But it was a very good movie. It just left a lot of questions, and for the most part, I kept wondering why the scenes moved the way they did. Why were the flashbacks reverted, but then we kept moving fast forward, and the characters kind of it was almost like they were just hurrying to catch up to the next scene. So that the pace of the movie was an issue for me, but the dialogue didn't match for me. So I don't know. That's just my opinion. Good movie, not the best, but I still enjoyed myself. If you've seen it, what do you think? Leave me a comment below and let me know. And if you would like to sign up for jury duty, hit the subscribe button. If you'd like to know who's next on the nerd ballot, hit the notification bell. Until next time, I can't wait for you to approach the nerd. Bye, guys. Thank you for watching my video. I really appreciate it, but hey, the party doesn't have to stop now. Click on one of these videos and keep it going.